Okay. Welcome in to the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast for the first time in a while. We have definitely... it's been a minute since we've done one of these. We all got pretty busy during the off-season. I was dealing with a lot of school things. Marshall and Zach both had a lot of work things. But we are back now, and Avalanche hockey is back. We are just under 25 hours from the first puck drop of the regular season. And I cannot wait. And I feel like you guys are pretty much in the same boat.
Dude, it's Christmas Eve. What are you talking about? I've been waiting for this day for the last 2 weeks. After we knew that 13th was the day. That's tomorrow. So good game to start it out too. Luckily for all of Colorado, we can actually watch the game.
Yeah,
is it nationally televised?
Oh yeah. We got a
Wednesday night rivalry.
Full day of hockey tomorrow. It starts at 3:30, goes all the way up until that Avs game. So I know I will be sitting on my couch all afternoon just taking in some NHL hockey.
Yeah. And barring any COVID mishaps or whatever, there should be 116 straight days of hockey starting tomorrow. Not only is it exciting for Avs fans, which is hockey fans all around. We got a little taste of the hockey season those last couple of weeks with the World Juniors, which was awesome. Go USA for sure. But all of the Avs prospects showed out. We might get into that, we might not, but super exciting. But definitely ready for a little bit more of that.
Yeah, and speaking of prospects, let's kick this off just by talking about some of the Avalanche players that are going to start being involved. So basically rookies that could take that step. It's looking like Connor Timmins is going to get that first start. It's looking like Bowen Byram will be coming in shortly after that. And we've got all kinds of guys, Martin Kaut, Shane Bowers, on their way up. Which of these guys are you the most excited for? And 1 second, I have to fix my laptop. But you guys talk.
Zach, you can kick it off.
So for me, this might be a little bit of recency bias because we just saw Bowen Byram play, and he was outstanding. He's a guy I think can jump directly into the lineup. Maybe that 6D, playing a little bit of less minutes, learning on the back end. But he's a guy that can jump in, and I think he's going to play playing good minutes for the Avs this season for sure.
I mean, yeah, for me, it obviously, goes straight to Bowen Byram as well. A guy just like Makar, fourth overall pick, all the hype in the world. And to be honest, he did not disappoint whatsoever in World Juniors. He was named Canada's best player, was, an alternate captain going in, but wore the C in that gold medal game and, showed some character by handing out all the medals. And,
yeah, can we talk about him crying a little bit? That was pretty like heart-wrending. At least if you were a Team Canada
character,
guy,
though.
I was happy about it. But.
Yeah,
it shows character to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, obviously I was rooting for the U.S., but it was really exciting to see 3 high-end Avalanche prospects on that Canada team, obviously. But I just think that, him still going up there, handing out the medals, which is that a new thing, by the way?
Yeah, it was because of COVID they did that.
Oh, okay.
And so, that must be one of the hardest things ever for, especially in this World Juniors where they had to be quarantined for 2 weeks and just unprecedented circumstances. They had to be in the bubble as well. To be wearing the C for the team that ended up finishing second and still having to hand out the second place medals. While crying, that shows some great character. But I was telling Zach after the game, he's not going to have to wait too much longer to lift an actual trophy. So.
Yep. At the end of this season, at least that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
I agree with you guys. I think Byram's easily the most exciting prospect just because he's the most highly touted prospect, and we've been waiting for this since he was drafted. We knew since he was drafted that he was going to be a stud. But I'm also really excited about Connor Timmins. It's looking now like he's going to get his first, well, not his first NHL game, but his first of the season right on opening night tomorrow with taking EJ's slot. I'm really excited to see this. This is a guy that he really felt like kind of the odd man out, where I didn't know how he was going to work his way into the lineup. Byram was clearly going to get in, and there's just so much depth on this Avs roster that it was looking like Timmins might have a tough path, but the EJ injury combined with a good camp, which he seems to have every year, means that it's looking like Timmins is going to get a shot, and let's see what he does. Do you guys think that he has a chance to really legitimately earn a spot in that starting lineup going forward? Or do you think this is kind of, as soon as EJ's back, he's probably going to be forced out of the lineup?
Yeah, I could see him getting forced out as soon as EJ's back. Honestly, that's pretty sad. He's been through a lot of adversity already in his young career. And I'm going back to the pods at the end of last season. We talked about how he's probably an odd man out on the defensive end. And I think that still holds true. Nothing's really changed. So, unfortunately, I think that might be the case. But he's still, like, let's just build some value for Timmins. So I have no problem with this at all.
To me, I kind of do. I was on the boat where I see a future with Timmins. You can never have too many good defensemen on your team. And to be honest, I think the way that he stays in the lineup is by outplaying, whether it's a Graves or a Cole or even an EJ once he comes back. I don't see him necessarily outperforming EJ or EJ not performing to the standards of, both Graves or Cole, but I do see a scenario where it's like if you're playing well, then you're going to stay in the lineup. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a team that's driven to win the Stanley Cup, as we've heard them say 1,700 times during their pressers this year. But the only thing that worries me is how many roster spots do we actually have for both Byram and Tim, and going down the line. This EJ situation is definitely helping Timmins at the start, but if he comes out the gate flying, then I don't really see how Bednar can take him out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Marshall. I think if he plays to the best of his ability and if he's playing better than the guys at the bottom of the roster, then they're going to leave him in. But you also did touch on there's a lot of guys on this roster, and Byram and Timmins are both rookies. Makar's in his second year. Gerard has been playing for a while, but he's still like 20, 21 years old.
I think 22 or something.
He's our age, so not exactly an NHL seasoned veteran. And then you've got, after that, you're looking at Devon Taves, who's in his 20s, mid-20s, and the only real veteran left you have on that blue line, if you take out Ian Cole, is EJ. So
yeah,
how young can a Stanley Cup contending blue line be? I think that I'm a proponent of the best players should be the ones that you play. So if Connor Timmins is outplaying Ian Cole, then he should get the spot. And if Bowen Byram is outplaying Ian Cole, then I think they should both be in the lineup. It will be interesting to see how the philosophy of the Avalanche organization compares, because I do envision a scenario where they say, you know what? Connor Timmins looks like the better player right now, but we are a cup contending team. We need a little bit more experience, and we've got a very, very young D-core.
I agree. However, it's like we have 7 or 8 D, from top to bottom right now that can legitimately fill NHL roster spots. Mm-hmm. And that, especially in this season, that there's going to be people missing time due to injuries or COVID concerns. So I think we're going to see a lot, maybe not every single game from Timmins and Byram, but I would envision, 30, 40 games from both of them, which is very exciting. And, there's going to be spots that open up pretty quickly, in my opinion. So,
yeah, that's a really good point with the COVID, in and out of the lineup thing. That's a very, prominent thing this season. And hopefully there's no games canceled. We've seen the NBA have to move around some games, but the NHL has done, they did the best in the bubble. So hopefully they can continue that throughout the season.
Yeah. I think that it'll do well. I have a reasonable amount of confidence in the NHL getting all of this done. The NBA, so far, we haven't had any major disasters. There have been some things that are going to frustrate teams. As Colorado sports fans, we saw the Nuggets play a severely handicapped 76ers team, and I think you're going to see things like that happen in the NHL as well, and it's just kind of an inevitability of the COVID season, but I do think that they are going to be able to get it done. I think that they're going to have every team play the majority of their games. Maybe 1 or 2 is canceled here and there. Maybe they do have to do points percentage by the end of the season, but I am confident that the season will be finished.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we already saw it with both the NFL and the MLB. It's like there were major hurdles not being inside a bubble, and we know that the NBA, they're adjusting their COVID policies, seems like every day by now, but it's so that the season can get finished. And the silver lining is that we did see those leagues. Well, the NFL, I guess, hasn't finished yet, but they made it through a regular season, looking like they'll finish strong. But the MLB made it through their season with a bunch of hurdles, teams having to postpone their games and all that. But I think that it is the NHL's goal to get this the season underway and finished, and it's gonna work out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's also convenient that we are the fourth ones to go. So the NBA started a little bit earlier, so we got to watch and see all the potential problems we might run into. So we should be prepared for those. And I'm excited, but I'm even more excited that the Avalanche are legit contenders. We moved past the prospects, so let's talk about the Avalanche, the guys we know are in the lineup. Who are your biggest X factors, just the guys that you are most excited to watch this season, or maybe guys that you're worried about this season? What can you not wait to see tomorrow night and beyond?
Ooh, so for me, it's the two new guys, Devontae and Brandon Saad. Those two guys, just because I haven't seen them play, and we have an elite defense and an elite offense, and I just want to see how these two guys mesh with those two different cores, and it could be magical.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for those guys for sure.
Especially seeing Devon Taves looking like he's going to skate with Cale Makar on that top pairing.
Yeah.
That could be an electrifying top D pairing. They have to be the fastest in the league. There's so much.
Yeah, how are you going to
that
catch
league.
up to them?
I don't.
How would you catch up to those two?
Who knows?
For me, so I was going to go kind of down that same route, but for me, I'm just more excited to see everyone healthy. I'm excited to see what Rantanen looks like this season without the whole holdout and that thing going on, and hopefully like he can stay healthy. I'm looking for him to have a huge year, like a year that we haven't seen from him yet. He's my biggest X factor for this team because we know what McKinnon's going to bring. We know what Cale Makar is going to bring. Can we see the Rantanen from a couple of years ago? And if we can, then even that top line with or without Landeskog is going to be one of the best in the NHL. One thing I'm a bit worried about is that we did see a lot of players last season have breakout years, such as Burakovsky and Nichushkin, to name a couple. So I'm worried if those two in particular can continue that success that they found here.
Yeah, Burakovsky is especially important because he is integral to that team. Right now he's skating with McKinnon and Rantanen, so that's a top line but easy top six player that you're talking about. And it's still not necessarily locked in that he is that guy. But I have a lot of confidence in him, but I definitely see where if you're singling out one guy in the Avalanche top six that you're like, I'm not totally sold yet, it's got to be Burakovsky.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. But like you said, Billy, I do have a ton of confidence in him. I think he has tremendous skill and amazing shots. So, and it's really exciting that he had a year like he did last year, that he can, push himself up into that top line so that we can, maybe balance out the top couple of lines, because that second line, I know, Billy, you mentioned he's skating with Burakovsky's skating with Rantanen and McKinnon right now. I mean, that second line's not too shabby either with Kadri, Saad, and Landeskog.
That is a shutdown
that top
line.
Six, that top six is scary. I don't care what team you are in the NHL. Mm-hmm. That top six is, I mean, electric.
And freeing up Landeskog to play next to Saad and Kadri allows that second line to be one of the NHL's most difficult lines to play against. I mean, it almost makes me go back to when Ottawa chose to give us the Bowen Byram pick instead of the pick the year prior, which would have been Brady Tkachuk. Just imagine Tkachuk on that line as well next to Kadri and Landeskog. Yeah. But even as it stands, that is one of the grindiest, defensively sound, just physical, frustrating lines. You're talking about that top line in Vegas when you're talking about their elite wingers. They're going to have a tough time. You're going to talk about St. Louis's top six. They're going to have a tough time going against that line. So there's a lot of good throughout the top six. They can do different things. They can beat you in different ways.
Yep. Do we want to get into the division a little bit?
Yeah, we should talk because basically the way it's structured for the West Division in particular is we are very, very top heavy. We have Colorado, St. Louis, and Vegas, and then it falls off hard with Arizona, Minnesota, and the three California teams in LA, Anaheim, and San Jose. One of those five teams has to get a playoff spot, but the good news for the Avalanche is we have a few tough games which will keep us ready throughout the season. We're not going to be playing garbage and then go into the playoffs and have that wake up call. We do have those good teams to keep us fresh and all that, but we also have like a really good chance to get some confidence building, dominant blowout wins on some of the weaker teams in this division.
I mean, dude, we're going up against Arizona. Like, what is it? 8 times or 6 times?
8 times each team. So
yeah,
8 times 7, 56 games.
I mean, if we see anything like we saw in the Arizona series in the bubble, then good Lord, our goal differential is gonna be out of this world just on the Arizona games. The Avs have, historically have been not that great against the California teams, though. If we're looking back even in recent years, that California trip has proven to be a bit difficult for them. Albeit it was, the more difficult times was when all like LA, San Jose, and Anaheim were pretty freaking good at the same. So it's a bit of a different story this year, but it's going to be interesting, just playing it's going to be interesting to see how we look against those teams versus how we look against like the Vegases and St. Louis's. And to be honest, I don't necessarily hate Minnesota's team still. I think that they're going to be right in contention to push for that last playoff spot.
I'm really interested in what Kaprizov can bring to the table because that is a really hyped up guy. I think he should be the favorite for the Calder. I know Shesterkin and Lafreniere are also in that mix, but this is a very talented kid, so I'm honestly excited to play them just to watch him.
Yeah, absolutely. That kid's out of this world. I'm excited to see what their goaltending situation is going to look like too. With Doobie out of there now, they're moving on to a different path. So they're going to be an interesting team, but I think that they're amongst one of the teams that's going to be fighting for that 4th spot. Should we give some predictions right now for the West? Because I think most of us will have the same top 3, but maybe not the top 4.
I think we're all going to be. Can I just go ahead and ask and make sure this is correct? I think we all have Colorado, Vegas, St. Louis. Is anyone in a disagreement
easy. On that? Nope.
All right, so let's give our predictions for that final playoff spot. I'm going to go ahead and take Anaheim. I'm not totally confident in it, but there are things that I like about them. I think they have a lot of players that could have breakout years. You still got Troy Terry there, Sam Steele. Trevor Zegras could be coming in. So, that's another talented player. They've got a lot of guys that haven't necessarily broken out yet, but could. So I think they may have the highest ceiling of all the teams in the West. Whether or not they reach that ceiling is another question, but I do think that they have a good chance to be in that dogfight, if not win it.
Well, and the goaltending X factor.
John Gibson is going to be helpful.
Yeah. Zach, how about you? Who's your 4th team?
I'm gonna have to go with Minnesota. They still got those wily vets. They're in it every year, even if they have to come back. What's that young guy's name?
Kirill Kaprizov. And they've also got Kaapo Kähkönen, who looks like the young guy in net who could take over the job. He's gonna have to beat out a couple guys, but Talbot and Stalock don't really scare me. So.
Yeah, their goaltending is sus, so we'll see about that. But they're my pick for the 4th spot.
Okay.
Zach, I'm also going on them with the 4th spot with a shout out to San Jose. I think San Jose could be one of those teams that surprises a little bit, has a bounce back season. Like Erik Karlsson and Brent Burns are still there, still have some pretty good forwards up top. But like you said, Zach, it seems like Minnesota just never dies. The last couple of seasons, I've been expecting them to just be one of the worst teams in the league. Yeah. And so far they haven't, and they have some helpful reinforcements coming, specifically with Kaprizov and Kapanen.
I definitely I feel like that 4th team is going to be very interesting. Not only in that they're going to have to sneak their way in, but also that it makes the 1 seed significantly more important than it had been before. You know, a lot of the other teams, no matter who you're playing in the first round, it's going to be a good team. Especially if you look out east, there's going to be a dogfight just to get in. There's going to be a very, very good team or a couple that miss the playoffs. Out west, that 1 seed's important because instead of playing Vegas or St. Louis in the first round, you could be playing a team that, let's be honest, in a normal year with the normal divisions, would be looking at a top 10 pick.
Yeah. It's a very good point, Billy. That's a very good point. I never really even, thought of it that far, but if we could avoid St. Louis or in Vegas in the first round, then my golly, would that be nice?
Yeah.
Which, it'll be interesting. You have to play everyone eventually, but you want to give yourself the best opportunity to get through every round. So I do think there's a very good chance that the Avalanche win the division, but I think there is that extra element of importance to winning the division this year as opposed to a normal year. And I know there's a bad wild card team every year, so it's always important to win your division, but this year, just to me, it looks like there's a chance that there's just an extra bad team that you might get in the first round. So we'll see how that plays out. But I want to move on here to, while we're doing predictions, I want each of you guys to give me one or two bold predictions for whether it be Avalanche players or the Avalanche team as a whole this year. Ooh. And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, so I'm going to go ahead and start.
No, I've been thinking about this.
I have not.
Well, then, Marshall, why don't you go ahead and...
This is what question that I was going to... This is a question that I was going to ask, actually. Right. What my number one bold prediction is that Rantanen's going to lead the team in scoring.
I like that a lot. Okay. I think Rantanen has been slept on so much this offseason with the hype of what Nathan MacKinnon just did in the playoffs and Cale Makar did all season. People are kind of forgetting that Rantanen was there. Rantanen had a bit of a down year, although points-wise he was still right around a point per game. He has a chance to, I think, take that next step and really show the NHL that he's not just an elite player on the Avalanche. He is one of the 2 or 3 best wingers in the league.
Yeah. And so why I kind of come to that conclusion is that I do think that MacKinnon and Rantanen are going to have terrific seasons, and it's going to be a little bit of like a neck and neck who's going to take home that Avalanche scoring title. But I kind of picture that dynamic as the McDavid and Draisaitl dynamic a little bit, where it's like Draisaitl is going to pop off one year and McDavid is going to pop off another. And I think that this is Rantanen's year. It's time for him to prove why he's worth that contract, and I think he's ready to go. The clips that I've been seeing from training camp, he's been looking good.
I like that a lot. Okay. So I have a couple here. One is a little bit. I'll go with my super bold prediction first. This is super stretch prediction, but I'm gonna say that in this season, Cale Makar will score at a point per game pace. So in a not a point per game pace, 100-point pace. So in a 56-game season, that's 68.3 points. So really 68, 69 points. He will, if he does that, he'll win the Norris, right? Like that's clear. But I think that there's a chance that Makar takes his offense to that next level. I think the Avalanche power play, if they spent the offseason doing what they should, could be much more productive. I think that there's a chance. He was almost a point per game last year. He had 51 points in 56 games. That year 2 leap, we've seen it from Makar before. I think that there's a chance that Cale Makar just pops off this year. And in a shortened season, he only has to be really hot for a little bit less time. So I think there's a chance that Cale Makar has a 100-point pace, which in this case is 68 points.
Wow. Okay, that's hot. And
it's not unrealistic, though.
Not unrealistic.
It's definitely
bold. I will say Cale Makar for Norris was my bold pick. But I'm changing that. I got 2 of them. First one is not the lesser of the take. Avs to win the President's Trophy.
I like that.
I think that could happen. Okay, and the second one, I'm changing from Cale Makar to win the Norris to MacKinnon to win the Art Ross.
I like that a lot. That could be an interesting one. Yeah. Because MacKinnon, while he has been like a Hart Trophy candidate, hasn't really come super close to the Art Ross. He's always been a few points. Well, realistically, it's because there's always been that one player in the last 2 years. It's been Draisaitl and Kucherov that have just run away with it. But MacKinnon has that potential, and he could be that 130-point guy. Obviously not 130 this season, but you know what I mean, that 130 points in an 82-game season kind of guy. He could have that pop-off kind of year.
I mean, if he plays like he did in the bubble, then we're looking at a 777-point season. So, no, just kidding. But one more bold take for me. I don't even know if this is that bold in my mind, but is that by the end of the season, Tyson Jost will be run completely out of the lineup.
Ooh.
It's tough, but it's hard. It's easy to see where you're coming from. You know, you got the top 6 we've talked about.
It's sad,
Kopher, Donskoy, and Nichushkin are all pretty clearly in the lineup. And then when you get to that 4th line, you got a lot of guys.
Calvert,
Belmar, Kaut, O'Connor, Bowers is coming up.
O'Connor. It's tough, man. But, like, if you're not – I mean, he's been performing the last few seasons as a 4th-line player. And if you have these young guns that are pushing for roster spots that could be producing as a 3rd-line player, or even realistically a 2nd-line player like Kaut or Bowers, then you are going to fill that roster spot with a higher offensive.
I think that his route to staying in the lineup is pushing out Belmar, because I think Kaut is going to force his way in, but I think that Jost's route to staying in the lineup is pushing Belmar out of it.
That's true, man. But like I've said this in the past, I don't really see Jost as a 4th-line player. He doesn't really fit that 4th-line player mold. Belmar does. Calvert does. Calvert is the prototypical 4th-line player. He is who you want. Yeah, like he's one of my favorite players on the team, and he's a 4th-line player. Just because you have to kind of fit that mold to an extent, you know. I don't really see Jost as that kind of guy. Like, you know, he has some pretty nice skill, but he's not really like that ultra physical, grindy type guy like, you know,
you'd
Calvert
really like
is.
to have Jost playing a middle 6 role that fits his skill set a little bit better. And it's realistically, it's just it doesn't seem to be in the cards in Colorado. So I think
that's a key point right there. That's a key point in Colorado.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I do feel like on a significant amount of teams he could be a middle 6 guy.
Let's see what Seattle thinks. I mean, he's one of a number of guys in the cards for Seattle to take. I still like Jost. I love the guy. I love how hard he works. He still has a skill. It's just it's become a little bit evident at this point that he isn't quite good enough to do it here, especially with all the guys that Colorado keeps bringing in and still has coming. So I love Jost, but I see where you're coming from. There's a good chance that this is the year that he's finally pushed out of the lineup. And in all likelihood, if he is pushed out of the lineup, he probably moves on from Colorado next year, whether that's via trade, via expansion draft, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. One more thing that I forgot to mention that I'm excited about is to see how the new uniform color combinations look tomorrow.
I'm not excited I'm not excited about that either. I'm dreading it. The thirds are good. The retros are good. The home and away with the blue gloves.
Yeah. And the blue breezers.
I like the homes. The aways look terrible under like what we've seen, you know.
It's just too blue.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think they're both just bad. You shouldn't have changed. You should have left them black, in my opinion. Like, it's just, it doesn't
even
look
the
good.
Navy,
I hope it's just for the season.
But...
I don't know. I'm excited to see how they look because the training camp pictures, I like it. Oh, and also breaking news from today that these are the first pictures that I saw. Ball is going to be the sponsors on the helmets.
That makes sense. It was one of those that like it hadn't been announced, but like we were kind of expecting it. You know, it seemed like Ball was the likely sponsor.
I didn't really know where they were going to go, but once I saw that, I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Right. Ball's a Denver company, isn't it?
Yeah, from like Brookfield or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and honestly, the logos don't look terrible on the helmets. Just like a white logo that says Ball. Don't necessarily love Ball, but
yeah, I mean it's not distracting. Yeah. So there's that. Every time I was watching the World Juniors, I think it was Team USA that had Chipotle, and every time they looked up and I saw Chipotle, it was just all right. It was distracting. So I think Ball's a little better.
But one thing that I don't necessarily love that they took away the logos on the helmets, though. I'd kind of rather them have done something like that on the
Yeah.
front, or like a jersey patch.
How
but
junior teams always just put like they've got the league logo on one side of the back of the helmet, and then on the other side that's where they would put an ad. So I kind of figured that's where they were going with it.
Yeah, but whatever. I guess we just take away the entire franchise logo on the helmets, but at least Ball doesn't look bad, and it's a Colorado company, so whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I am not a huge fan of logos on the helmets, but it's clearly a necessary evil in this case. The NHL needs to recoup some money there. Of the big four sports, the NHL is clearly the league that has the least money to begin with, so they're going to be hit the hardest by this. This is it's necessary, so I'm fine with it. I will say I really don't want to see this become a trend where they soon start putting logos on jerseys and we get the whole European look, because I hate those.
It's coming. Those are coming.
Hope not.
Oh man, I really.
There's no going back.
Oh, that's brutal if that ends up happening. It's just gonna look like just a cluster out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the ice too.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, we've already seen it with the ice.
Yeah, but the ice in Europe, is like 10 times worse. Instead of we just got our King Supers logo right here, and then that's it.
Yeah, the European ice gets pretty bad. I'm hopeful
like the whole circle's yellow.
Stay away from that. I think the NHL knows that a lot of people are going to be really irritated if they do go down that route, so maybe it'll hold them off for a little while. We'll see. So, getting away from some of the off the ice stuff, let's get back to some of the players. And I'm gonna just list off the names of the prospects. I know we've talked a little bit about prospects before. I'm gonna give you the names, and I want you to tell me how many of them play at least one NHL game this season. So, Bowen Byram, Connor Timmins, Shane Bowers, Martin Kaut, and Logan O'Connor. So those are kind of the five, to me, most exciting prospects this season. I'll throw in Adam Warner as well in goal. So those six guys. How many of them do you think get into an NHL game, at least one this season?
Yeah, I think all of them except Adam Warner.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
you should have a caveat here. 10
games. Okay.
Ooh, okay. I hope all of them get at least 10 games. I really do. But I want Bowers to get his games. Bowen, he's going to get his games, obviously. Cout's going to get his games. He's ready. I hope everybody gets their games. I don't know who doesn't play more than 10 games, honestly. I think that's a little bit too low as well.
I don't think Bowers plays 10 games. I think Kaut is right on the fringe.
I don't think
Kaut is going to need injuries. If the Avalanche stay healthy all year, then Kaut probably won't. And honestly, Logan O'Connor likely won't. So you're definitely, I think.
And Adam Warner, there's
no way for 10.
If Adam Warner plays 10 games, then the season is.
I mean, maybe Francouz and Grubauer got hurt tomorrow night, and then he played 10 in a row, and then everyone's back healthy. But yeah, Adam Warner playing 10 games would definitely be a stretch. I do think there's a good chance he plays one game because one injury, and then you're playing a back-to-back. Is he your first call up in goal? I think there's a good chance he is.
Freaking Broncos situation where the entire quarterback room gets put in quarantine. It's like, what happens? Yeah, so I would. That's why I said all six in the original one game type thing. But if we're talking 10 games, my prediction is Byram, Timmins, and Kaut get their 10 games. I would see Bowers kind of pushing that line. Maybe he goes over, but maybe not. But I feel like it's right around 10 games. I don't think there's any way OC gets the 10 games unless they're ravaged by injuries, which honestly could happen. Not hoping for it and knocking on wood with that. And Warner not getting his 6
honestly,
games.
I would put LOC ahead of Bowers just as far as getting the 10.
Really?
Wow.
I mean, I think there's a good chance that I think both of them would take injuries, if I'm being honest. The guys that I think definitely will get 10 games, Bowen Byram, well, he's the only one I would say definitely. I think Connor Timmins is fairly likely, and I think Martin Kaut is fairly likely, just because they're probably the first or second guy in with an injury. LOC and Shane Bowers, I think you're talking about multiple injuries, and I do think that LOC is ahead of Shane Bowers on the depth chart. And there's also the whole how long are we going to preserve Shane Bowers? So
Yeah, that's kind of pissing me off a little bit. I want to see Shane Bowers.
I do too. I like Shane Bowers a lot. He also wears number 14, which is the number I wore, and there's no Avs ever that wear 14, so I want Shane Bowers to play.
Neither 7, which is the number I wore. Except, is Devon Tays going to be wearing 7?
I'm not sure, actually. He might be.
I know he did. I know he did on the island. So
I can think of 2 players that wore, or I can think of 2 players, one that wore 7, one that wore 14.
Tomas I can too. John Mitchell. The last 14.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
I was like, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, I guess John Mitchell. I shouldn't have said that because he was pretty recent wearing 7. But
right.
There's not really a whole lot of impact players around the league that wear 7, anyways, or 14 to think about it.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but
I can't think of any.
Nick Suzuki.
I guess
All right, let's talk a little bit about around the league because I'm kind of excited for a lot of these other teams. We've talked who we like on the Avs. Who are your breakout players for just the league as a whole? Because I just mentioned Nick Suzuki, and he's one of mine that I'm like, this kid could blow up this year. I don't know that he's like a superstar, like a top 5 center of the league type, but he is one of those very, very good second-line center types to me, like a Nugent Hopkins, Matt Duchene even, where you're fringe 1C, 2C. I think Nick Suzuki has a chance to really make a statement this year.
Okay. I think I'm going to go Jack Hughes, just because I heard him say that he's going to have a breakout season.
He said it, so.
He did. That's why I think so.
Why would he lie?
I have 3 names, and to be honest, they are pretty household names already, but I feel like they're going to take that next step into just elite stardom. Jack Eichel, Elias Pettersson, and he's not so much of a household name, but by the end of the season, he's going to be, and that's Rasmus Dahlin.
Okay. I like that.
Oh, okay. We'll see about that.
I think Eichel took that step last year, but I don't know how many people gave him the credit for it. So I feel like that will happen this year, once he repeats himself.
It's kind of last year's season for Eichel reminded me a little bit of that first Nathan McKinnon breakout season where a lot of people didn't necessarily give him a ton of credit for that. I mean, he did, I guess, finish second in the Hart Trophy, but that's also saying something because he should have won that Hart Trophy, but obviously East Coast bias went to Taylor Hall, so that was saying something for that one season. But Elias Pettersson, I do think that he takes that step into Hart Trophy contention, and Rasmus Dahlin, dude, the kid's 20 years old still, 21,
and defensemen always take longer. Yeah, there's a reason he was drafted first overall.
Yeah, he was an 18-year-old defenseman, and adding Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel's emergence is just going to help him on the power play and put up some more points. So
yeah, I like those a lot. I'm excited for a few other defensemen in this year. Ivan Provorov feels like one of those guys that goes under the radar a lot. That I think could also take that step into elite defenseman territory where you don't want to leave his name out when you're talking about the 10 guys at this point that could win a Norris. I think Charlie McAvoy is a guy that has been around for a little while, but there's another level for that kid.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on the opposite side of the puck. The way he moves is terrific. Just hasn't necessarily put up all the points, but he's done it. He's done it on the defensive side of the game, especially with Torrey Krug and Chara moving on from Boston. McAvoy's going to have to take that next step, and I think he will. How about Calder winner predictions?
This is tough. I know I said earlier in the show I think my favorite would be Kirill Kaprizov, and I think the other two really in contention are Lafreniere and Igor Shesterkin. But I'm curious to see who you guys think, and then I also got a couple dark horses.
This is hard for me because I don't really know too many of these guys. Like Shesterkin, who the fuck is that?
The Rangers goalie. He's sick.
He's a goalie. Wow.
Nasty.
I'm gonna go with Marshall, you go first. This is hard.
Okay, well, I mean, Billy, could you guess where I'm heading?
Okay, actually, I know who I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Stutzel.
Okay.
That's not a bad
I
pick.
can see it.
But
oh yeah, I know who Marshall's
is
gonna pick.
Trevor Zegras,
Yes.
baby.
Let's go.
Oh, dude, this kid's nasty. I've been saying it ever since I wanted the Avs to take him at 4. I literally wanted that to happen, and he was one of the bigger boomer bust players in that entire draft. But everything that he's been doing so far, encapsulated, especially with that World Juniors performance, only solidifies my position that he's going to be a superstar in the NHL and win the Calder Trophy.
He's looking like he's got that shot. The one thing I will say is there's a couple guys that look maybe more NHL ready today, which is why I would put Lafreniere and Kaprizov in front of him. But if we're talking high-end skill, he absolutely has a shot at it. My favorite dark horse for this is Sorokin, the Islanders goalie. Varley's super injury prone. So we know that as Avs fans, there's a chance that maybe he seats some starts because of injury, and it's already looking like a platoon anyway. That's what the Islanders like to do. Sorokin could get more starts than we expect, and if he does, he's been one of the most highly touted goalie prospects for 3 or 4 years now. He could, if he finally makes that step and plays well enough, I think he also has a shot to take home the Calder.
Well, Billy, you also drafted every single goalie prospect in the fantasy league. So
in our fantasy league, I have Samsonov, Sorokin, and Shesterkin. So I have all the Russian goalies that are like the same age, and their initials are IS, all of them. So I like them all.
Yeah. So there's no surprise where you're headed with that, but there's no love for the true 18-year-old rookies here, like the Byrams or Lafrenières.
Byrams.
Or not Byram, sorry.
I know what you mean.
But
the Byfield.
I was going to ask about Byram too.
I think to me it's just too deep a class. I don't think Byram's going to get enough opportunity. Stützle, maybe he's got the high end skill, but again,
and he's playing on a weaker Ottawa team.
But it's just another one of those. He could get the opportunity if there is one other than Lafreniere. Lafreniere, I do think, is one of the favorites. If there's an 18-year-old rookie that does it other than him, I would say Stützle. Byfield, I'm not even 100% sure that the Kings will put him in the NHL immediately. I think there's a good chance, but I'm not 100% sure, especially with Turcotte also on the fringe. Are you going to bring in 2 rookie centers from the last 2 drafts classes to be your top 6 or middle 6 centers? So that'll be an interesting thing to look at. And then after that, I mean, the only other 18-year-old rookie that I think has a shot to even play in the NHL is Marco Rossi.
Yeah, but he's hurt.
Yeah, so let's see how long. Yeah. I mean, I will say, I'll save it for our next segment. But so I do think that this is too deep a rookie class. I just think there's so many guys. Studnicka in Boston looks like he's going to be playing on that top line until Pasternak gets back. So there's a lot of rookies this year, which is why I'm not completely sold on a young kid doing it.
I really want the Avs to have the trifecta, though. Cale Makar, Bowen Byram, and then Alex Newhook.
It would be nice. 3 years in a row. I honestly, I will say this. I think this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think just based on opportunity-wise, I would say that Martin Kaut is more likely to win it than Bowen Byram. And I know that, let me explain myself. Byram, the Avs have a lot of guys that could slot into the top 4. And Byram doesn't necessarily look like the first call-up if someone in the top 4 does get hurt. And I'd say the same about Kaut, but if Brendan Saad gets hurt, and Martin Kaut has looked good and has been outplaying Nichushkin and Donskoy, he might get that second-line center, or that second-line winger role. And then maybe he's a little bit of a dark horse if that happens. It would have to happen early in the season and be weird, but I don't think either of them realistically wins it, but I think Kaut has a slightly better chance.
Yeah, but the same can be said about Byram.
I mean, I guess, but he's never going to be a top pairing guy. And I think to win it as a defenseman, you have to be on the top pairing, and Byram's about 3 or 4 rungs down right now. Because Taves would have to get hurt, and then Gerard, and then EJ. You've got 3 guys ahead of him, really.
Yeah. I guess that's fair, but I don't know, man. I think just in terms of upside, any of the rookies on the Avs in terms of talent that could win the Calder this
He's
year.
easily the most talented. I'll give you that. But I don't know, just opportunity-wise and being a defenseman, I think it's a tough path for Bowen Byram to get there. So that's why I'm not super hopeful that Nav can win it this year. But there's a lot of rookies. So let's move on to what I want to do as our last segment of the show. Around the league, give me your hottest takes from around the league.
Montreal to win their division. That's my hottest take right now.
I like that. I mean,
Florida to make the playoffs is mine.
Florida? Ooh.
Florida to make the playoffs.
That's an interesting one. All right, give me some explanations here.
Okay. Zach, do you want to start?
Yeah, just like what you said about Nick Suzuki, I think he's going to take a step. Their young center who has a hard last name to say that I don't really remember right now.
Oh.
Yeah, Kakanyemi, he's going to take a step. They got Carey Price. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah. If Toronto slips,
and they
I think they're the second best team.
Oh, Toronto. Yeah, I agree. The second best team. Toronto, I'm expecting, big things from Toronto this year.
Yeah.
I think the Canadians missed the playoffs.
Wow.
But
wow.
I am not in love with the Canadians. I don't understand where all this hype is coming from, if being totally honest.
I think it's coming from Suzuki, Kokaniemi, and then they brought in a couple guys that have potential.
To be honest, though, that's kind of like saying, oh my goodness, the Ducks are going to finish second in the West because, oh, look at this, they have Sam Steele, Troy Terry.
Yeah, but the West is better at the top.
Yeah, and the Ducks didn't make the playoffs.
The Canadian division's kind of a crapshoot when you get to 2. I feel like Toronto's the best, and even Toronto could falter. I feel like the Canadian division's a lot more wide open than the West is.
It is, but that 4th spot is still going to be more competitive than the 4th spot in the West.
Yeah, I think the 4th spot will be more competitive, but
in terms of talent wise, and upper echelon teams, the Canadian division, it's any of those teams, realistically, you could make an argument that can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't see.
I think the Senators are kind of the weakest, but they could have steps. But the thing about it is that there also aren't 3 teams that are locked into playoff spots. In the West, you've got the bottom 5 teams realistically fighting for one playoff spot. Anything can happen. Maybe the Knights or the Avs or the Blues miss and something crazy happens. But realistically, you have 5 teams fighting for one playoff spot. In the Canadian division, you have 7 teams fighting for 4 playoff spots. I'll call Toronto a lock. I think Toronto's pretty locked in. But other than that, you have 6 teams fighting for the other 3 spots. So, yeah, I think there's definitely a realistic chance that Montreal misses, but I think it's just as likely that they finish number 2.
Okay, I'll agree. I'll agree with that. But going to my Florida take, although they are in an extremely tough division, I think that they still have the talent, especially up front. I mean, Huberdeau and Barkov are 2 of the most underrated players in the entire league. Have a solid decor, and then I think everything hinges on how Bobrovsky plays because
he could bounce back.
He was one of, I think he's the highest paid goaltender in the league right now, and it's for good cause. When he was in Columbus and his previous destinations, he was one of the top 3 goaltenders in the league, and if he can have a bounce back year, especially with Quenneville, running the ship there, I think Florida, I think they could surprise some people this year. What's interesting about Florida is they have both Knight and Devin Levi in their prospect system. So what the heck is going to happen there, especially with Bob at the helm?
Levi is turning himself into a really good trade bait right now. He played well. Obviously, Knight still the better prospect, pretty definitively, at least in my opinion. So you got to think he's their future. He probably pushes Bob out eventually, but he's under contract a while. Their goalie situation's looking good for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I like that. I also really like Owen Tippett in Florida. It looks like he's finally going to break into the lineup, a guy that I think is going to be a top 6 forward for the next 15 years.
Yeah, that kid has an unreal shot.
Yeah, so I'm excited for Florida. I think there's a realistic chance they make the playoffs. So they are one of those teams that is in a real tough division, but someone good is going to miss, and maybe it's Florida, but there's just good a chance that it's not Florida. So I'll give you my hot take right here. Uh, in the COVID era, I think a lot of pieces would have to fall right. I think that there is a chance that Yaroslav Askarov gets into an NHL game this season, which for a rookie goalie,
Wow.
it sounds unrealistic, but he is good enough. Goalies are getting in younger and younger. I don't think he takes a starting job or even a backup job by any means, but I think if Nashville starts to struggle, if they start to have injuries, they need a call up. Askarov has to be at worst fourth on their call up list right now, especially if they can get him over playing in the AHL. There's a chance, I think, that Yaroslav Askarov plays an NHL game this year.
Two things that I completely disagree with there. For one, I don't know if he is good enough to play in the NHL yet because his World Juniors performance was
I'm
pretty
not worried about.
terrible.
He had some good games though. He had a couple bad games and some good ones. I'm not worried about one tournament. The body of work as a whole says that he is as close to NHL ready as any goalie we've seen coming out.
For 18-year-olds, I suppose. But
that's what he is.
But he didn't look ready in the World Juniors, is what I'm saying. For one, and then for two, in this COVID era, like you're mentioning, it would be nearly impossible for him to get over to North America in time for none of their goalies to get healthy again.
I think it depends on. I think if he does definitively stay in Russia, but if the AHL gets their season going, gets it all figured out, Nashville's going to want to try and get him playing in the AHL. So if they can get him to come over, that's when I think that possibility becomes a possibility because they've got him starting in the AHL. They got one injury. Oh, now time to pull up our taxi squad goalie. Better put Askarov on the taxi squad. And now guess what? We're one injury away from seeing Askarov play a game. So I think that there's a chance that it happens.
I suppose this is the hot take section.
Exactly.
So, yeah. We'll ride with that.
All right. So, on that note, are there any other things that you guys want to talk about before we go ahead and get out of here for today?
Really quick, are you guys excited for the Lake Tahoe game?
I am. I'm kind of in some ways. Like, it's weird because we're not going to be able to go to it, and I'm kind of just worried. What's it going to look like on TV? You know, because a lot of outdoor games have been bad on TV. A lot of any games where you're not talking about a normal NHL arena, they have to figure out how they're going to set up the cameras. So I'm slightly concerned about what it's going to look like, but I'm still hopeful, and it'll be a cool thing.
It'll be Mystery Alaska vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool.
I've never seen that movie.
I don't know why.
Did you guys see Burakovsky get the news broken to him that's not actually
it was Belmar.
Yeah, well, Belmar broke the news to Burakovsky.
Oh, are you serious? I thought it was. Oh.
Yeah, Belmar was telling Burakovsky thought the game was going to be on the lake itself.
Which would be sick.
I heard about it, but still, it's next to the lake on a golf course, which will still be a nice scenery. But
yeah, it will be. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yep, it should be fun. All right. So on that note, we are going to go ahead and get out of here for today. Don't worry, we will not be gone for like 3.5 months this time. We will be back. We haven't totally worked out what our scheduling is, but we do plan on having recaps of games going on. We will be talking about the Avs all season long. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. While you're here in that live chat, go ahead and hit the like button if you enjoyed the podcast, and we will see you in our next episode.
Are we still live or no?
Just ended it.
Nice.